Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of Game Starter. My name is Helen. I'm a project manager at Gamecity Hamburg, and my colleague Anna and I have invited three experts from Crytek, Supercell, and Remedy Entertainment to tell us all about the job of game producers tonight. But before we get to that, we want to share some news and upcoming events from Gamecity with you. So first up, we are looking for someone to join our team. We're hiring a working student. That right there in the picture, that might be you next year at Gamescom in Cologne with us. So if you are willing to support us in the communications and project management department, are enrolled in a German university and speak German and English, and would like to work up to 20 hours per week in our team, we would love to hear from you. The deadline for applications is October 10th, and you can find more info on our website. We're really looking forward to seeing all your applications. Also, all of you are obviously fans of online events because you're right here. So why not tune into another one next week, brought to you by Gamecity. Chris Zukowski will tell us all about Steam demos done right. Demos, of course, can be highly valuable marketing tools for indie developers if they are done right. Chris Zukowski will guide us through the most important questions when setting up a demo, such as how to design it, when to launch it, and of course, how to make a good use of the marketing tools that Steam provides you. You can sign up for that on Eventbrite, and the YouTube live stream will be right here again. And of course, if you are based in Hamburg or willing to travel, we would love to see you in person on October 11 at the Gamecity Treff meets Polaris. Polaris is a big convention that's happening for the third time in Hamburg from October 11 to 13. And as has become tradition, we will host a big networking event on the Friday of Polaris. Yes, about 250 to 300 people will join us, hopefully, from the Hamburg games industry and beyond, visiting Polaris and the Gamecity Treff. Join us for a laid-back evening of networking and just a general good time. We're looking forward to seeing you there. But now to the big event happening today, our game starter. Here's the quick schedule for tonight. Of course, you are currently in the welcome and introduction part, as you have noticed. Next up, we will introduce our wonderful panel to you. Then we will have a discussion round, and my colleague Anna and I, we have prepared a lot of questions for our experts. But of course, we would like to include your own questions. You can put them in the chat at any time, and if they are fitting the topic we are currently discussing, we will include them right away. And if they're not, we are going to save them for the Q&A round, which will start at 7, so that by 7:30, when we will wrap things up, we have hopefully answered all of your questions on game production. But of course, who will answer these questions? These three wonderful people have joined us and will share their expertise with us. First up, we've got Marilena Cassetta, who is a producer at Crytek, followed by Maurice Kroes, who's a lead producer at Supercell, and last but not least, Robin Meyer, who's a senior development manager at Remedy. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, best thing would be if you could introduce yourself a bit more. So I would like to hand the voice over to Marilena. Who are you, what do you do, and what are you currently working on?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Marilena. I work as a producer at Crytek, as stated before. I'm currently working on Hunt Showdown, basically in live service, which is a extraction shooter, battle royale type of horror game. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Maurice, how about you? Who are you and what do you do?
Hey everyone, my name is Maurice. I'm a producer at the Brawl Stars team over at Supercell. Brawl Stars is a live game, a mobile game, which is a fast-paced shooter MOBA, and I'm working mostly with the game teams.
Lovely. Thanks for joining us. And would you mind adding, how long have you been in the industry?
For 14 years now.
Impressive. All right. Robin, what about you?
Hello, I'm Robin Meyer. I joined the industry 13 years ago, and I've been with Remedy Entertainment for 4 years now. Ever since joining Remedy, I've worked on Alan Wake 2, which is a survival horror game that launched last October. And ever since then, we've been working on expansions to it, and we're working on the second one of those right now.
It is eagerly anticipated by me and many others, I'm sure.
I love that.
Yeah, so can't wait to learn more about what exactly you do. But to do that, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Anna, who will give us the first hard-hitting questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Now we come to the juicy stuff. We need all your answers. And maybe we can start with you, Maurice. Can you describe briefly what the job of a producer looks like at the company you work at?
Yeah, it's immediately an interesting question because for context, so I'm the first producer hire in the Brawl team. I've been there for about 6 months, so relatively recent. But Brawl Stars has been around since 2018. So that means, especially Supercell is always known for small teams, cells, if you will. But pretty in the last years, I think, or recent, the team has been scaling up a lot. We figured that we need to do more for our players. We want to release more content, make better game, and therefore we need more people, more expertise. And then with that growth became a challenge of how do we organize everything? And then one of the things was like, hey, maybe we should hire a producer to help us with that. And that became my job, and I'm incredibly happy to be there. But it's also pretty different from other producer jobs that I had. For me, that means I'm hired from a really high level point of view. How can I make the team work better? Sounds very very high level, which it is. But basically, that what it means for me is that I look at the team, the whole game team, and think about like, okay, what is are we working all on the most important things? Do we agree what the most important things are? Can we do our best job, or are we distracted by anything? Can I or the team remove any of those distractions, provide any focus points? And the other thing is, how can we be better every day? While we're doing pretty good as a team, we can always improve. So we're looking for continuous improvement in both our game and ourselves. So those are some of the key areas where from a day-to-day, I'm looking for like, what can I do here? How can I improve?
Okay, thank you. This was a good start. Marilena, maybe you can add what it's for you like. Is it similar? Is it totally different?
It is a little bit similar. While I'm not like working on a super high level position, I do have like both the macro and micro kind of levels of planning and working. Basically, while on the macro level, I do the roadmap planning, the feature planning together with other producers, and checking back with direction, making sure that the capacity plan is there, planning everything, because we're also a live service game, making sure that we have all the versions, like a couple of versions planned ahead. And so this is happening, but in parallel, also on the micro level, basically it's all about reacting every day to something new happening, either people being stuck on work, or I don't know, a blocker popping up, bug fixing, anything. And yeah, it's a very interesting kind of versatile work between the two kind of areas back and forth. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Robin, for you, is it similar, or what does it look like where you work?
I think it's very much what Maurice mentioned when he said figuring out what is the most important thing to do right now. I think that is and I'm sure it'll come up more as we talk today. But I think that is very much at the core of what I do every day, figuring out with my teams, what should we be doing? What do we need for that? And that's both like, what are we doing this sprint or this week? And what do we need for this, as well as, where do we want to be a couple months from now? And to get there, what do we need to solve now? Within Remedy, we sort of frame production as very much a project management role. Like, everyone has their own craft and everyone is an expert at what they do. And within production, we're really focused on just the project management side of it. And that's sort of the view we try to take.
And can you maybe add to which departments you work closely with? Maybe you can tell us about this a bit to make it more understandable
Yeah.
what it is you do.
Currently on the Alan Wake 2 expansion team, I work with the level design team and our gameplay teams. And the gameplay team also consists of animators and game designers, and we have a tech designer. So sort of that side of the project is under my wing. And level design and tech design are very much at the center of what we actually do. They help a lot of teams get their content in to the mission that we're building. And the gameplay team, for example, manages all of our combat encounters, all the interactions that we have, the weapons, stuff like this. So it very much touches everything, sort of every moment that you play within the build, we look at.
Okay, and how is it for you, Marilena? You are nodding. Is it like all of these departments and even more?
No, I've worked in various departments before, but right now it is I'm actually transitioning. It has been UI for a while, but now it's going to be from next month on animation and tech art, along with some features, along with some feature teams on features. So basically, both.
And Maurice, can you say something about this that can add to the understanding what you do?
Yeah. So my focus mostly is on the game side, gameplay, and tech, and I work with 2 other producers. So we're I think a smaller team than AAA Productions, and 2 other producers. One is more marketing focused, one is more content and art driven. So yeah, for me, it's the rest, and also like just globally, but working closely together with the other producers.
Oh, thank you. This was another question in a line that we added. Like, is there a team of producers where you work? So you have this, and for the other 2 is, do you work with other producers, or are you the only producer? Maybe Marilena, you can tell us about that too.
Yes, of course, we do have a production team of, oh, don't let me lie, maybe 15 people, maybe a little bit less. And each producer has a department plus a couple of features assigned. And it is very important that we sync each other, especially when it comes to either dependencies between one another, especially in the art department when it comes to create the creation pipeline of a character or so. There's a lot of dependencies there, but also in the feature teams to make sure that if I, for example, I own a feature where I need a VFX artist for, I need to make sure to also sync with the producer on VFX to make sure that I can get this resource for a specific amount of time and that it won't disrupt anything in the roadmap. So yes, collaboration is incredibly important.
Thank you. And Robin, do you have another production team or production producer that you were working with too?
Yeah, for sure. On the expansion team, we're just going to leave 4 of us. In total, we have a group of about 40 people working on it, roughly, sort of on and off. And we have a lead producer on it, and 3 people sort of working the day-to-day. When we did Alan Wake 2, though, the game was a lot bigger and the team was over 100 people internally, even, let alone our external partners. I think there we had about 12 production people, and that was sort of split into pillars. So we had a level design and environment group that had 3 producers. We had a gameplay group with 2, cinematic stuff like this. They all had their own production structures.
Okay, thank
and
you.
there, like
Yeah.
Marilena said, it's very much collaborating with other production groups. If you need something from them, talk about your dependencies. And for example, if you have a feature team where people from all the different teams come together to focus on getting a specific thing done, you're sort of breaking that production structure a little bit to make sort of we call it strike teams. And usually that is just run by one producer, but that could be senior or mid-level or even lower level.
And another question we had is, are there different types of producer? You already told about the different production teams. Like, is there a technical producer, a publishing producer? Is this what you mean with the different teams? Maybe Marilena, you can answer this quickly. If I understood this right.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's producers that can own, different departments and be more on the creative side. We usually just call them producers or, senior producers, depending on their seniority. Then there's also technical producers who do more of the systems, the back end, the online, more of the technical stuff. We also have content producers. Yeah, it's like we make this differentiation between, are you more of a technical producer or are you more of a content producer at Crytek?
And Maurice, you already mentioned the different teams and producers. Do you have this differentials as well?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, technically we're just all game producers, like within the team, but we all have our specialties and expertise areas. So yeah, like I'm more on the gameplay and tech side, and then one of my producers is more focused on art and content production. So working a lot with also all our partners, art outsourcing partners, and all the artists, and then we have one for marketing, and she's really focused on all the marketing activations, all the marketing videos and content we put out, and making sure that they can do their best work and support them.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can now understand how your workday looks like. This is one of our favorite questions because everybody's like always, how can I answer the question? How does a typical workday look like? Even for us, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe Maurice, you can explain. Is there a typical workday as a producer at your
try.
company?
I'll try. Is it a typical? I mean, there's a lot of different tasks, but I would say there's always this I would say repeating tasks. So things that I make sure to follow up on. I always start my day with checking my Slack and all my Slack reminders and follow-ups. I love that feature so much. It makes me follow up on all the messages that I want to follow up on. Just checking hey, is this still an open topic? Did we resolve it? So check if anybody needed any support, needed anything that wasn't moving along. Then there's certain just regular syncs and meetings, for example, as we grow and scale, there's just certain information that needs to flow and information that we need to be aligned on. So we do try to keep our weeks pretty meeting light, but meetings definitely happen. So I make sure that I attend those or organize them, make notes, and yeah, just make sure that those move smoothly. Then for me, I always try to if I can carve out some time for some more that could be for more short-term things, could be some extra activities, and then I don't know, a documentation thing that I still need to write, or it could be something that is more systemic. So things that for example, we do retros. So every 2 months we do our updates. So that's something that I organize, make sure that's well prepared, but also follow up all the action items that come out of it. So making sure that if the team is oh, these were some big pain points, then I'll carve out time, mostly for me, it's the end of the day, that I can work on them. So a lot of the early time of the day is following up and making sure everything runs and goes along. And then the other part for me is making time for those more important but maybe not urgent things on my list. And that to-do list grows, but it's going pretty well. So I'm not too unhappy about it. So have some time for those structural improvements as well.
Okay, thank you. Is it similar, Robin? Can you add what a workday maybe is different from what Maurice said, or do you have a similar structure, or maybe something different at all?
I think it's quite similar. Although I think from day to day, the days vary quite a bit depending on whether I have meetings or sort of what is the biggest fire to fight right now. But if I look at a week, my calendar is usually filled with our dailies where I catch up with my team on what they're doing. And sort of part of that is of course, are we doing the right thing? Is this the most important thing right now? And that's a question I try to ask myself when I come in the morning as well. And then the rest of the week is filled with either following up on meetings or reviews, hosting those reviews where we play through a part of the game. Like every Friday morning, we play through a fair chunk of what we're making, review it. Everything goes into Jira. It takes quite a lot of time. Some of these reviews spawn 100 tickets, but it needs the attention. And then as soon as possible, send it out to everyone, to other producers for them to sort of filter out. And in between is a lot of meetings about, we have a very specific beat. For example, something came up in a review. We need to talk about this, to just get everyone involved in doing this into a room, talk it through, make sure it's actually really clear what we're gonna do, and just solve problems one by one. And from day to day, it really varies sort of how much of that is there. Sometimes, like today, I just get a day where I can sit in Jira, clean up my meeting notes, and make sure nothing gets lost in the cracks. Some other days, I barely sit behind my computer because I'm in meetings all day.
Yeah, this sounds well, interesting enough to try it out. No.
It's genuinely super fun to be part of this, though. It's like watching this get made and watching it come together is a lot of fun. It's where I take a lot of my enjoyment, my work.
And Marilena, for you, do you have anything in the work process to add in your workday, or do you say, well, it's a combination?
It's, yeah, pretty much. I want to add here that generally speaking, I think a producer's day-to-day looks different depending on the production phases you're in. A workday can look very different in pre-production than it may look like in main or in post-production. And I've been in all three before. And currently in live service, I do have not as many meetings as previously, because in UI we typically have we're a catering, we're a service department. We basically deliver for the features that are requested usually from game designers or feature owners. There's some that are created on our own, but mostly it's about checking in the morning the Jira. Did we get any overnight bugs that break anything? Triage a little bit, either assign tickets or check if the capacity is still all right. Making sure that everybody has enough work assigned. We do have sprints, but sometimes because we have buffers, we keep some time free for bug fixing. It's kind of, we try to keep it flexible, the sprint, as best as possible. And in the afternoon, we do have syncs, but most of the time it's a lot of responding to devs who need support with something right now, because UI on Hunt currently has, we're going through a lot of change and a lot of development and a lot of fixing, also bugs that we're tackling. And so the day currently looks a little bit more different than maybe for Maurice or Robin may look like. So it really depends on the situation you're in.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insights. We have a question about how you work. It's about if your company offers remote work. Is this something, because producer work with so many different team members, is this something that can work, that had work, or do you say remote work as a producer? Well, is it offered at your company, and is it working if it's offered?
So that's a little bit complicated, because so the policy has been adjusted since beginning of this year. Basically, everything up until a regular position should consider relocating, while senior positions are considered to be more remote. However, I am not really sure. This is to be discussed with HR as to what possibilities there are, if there's other options there. So cannot really answer that question. But as to how we work remotely, yes, of course, sometimes things fall through the cracks, especially in terms of communication. But in my personal opinion, we do have bigger dragons to slay, and there's bigger problems that we tackle that I don't think necessarily require people to be in the office. But again, it's my personal opinion. And for me, I worked in an office before and I worked at home before. And I appreciate a lot the office culture and being together with people. I also appreciate my days where I can get work done, because most of the times it's like someone walks in, wants something, walks out, the next one was walking. And if it was for me, I think the perfect scenario for me would be probably hybrid. I'd enjoy that a lot. So I'm currently remote, but I think hybrid would be, at least for my personal, for also the situation that I am right now with, my life and my state. It's but everybody's different. So it's a tricky answer to question.
Yeah,
To answer, sorry.
It was a surprise question. Yeah, Robin, you. Oh,
Yeah.
Maurice, sorry, you wanted to
Oh,
add.
yeah, just want to jump. For us, for me, it's a bit simpler. Like when I was hired, it was definitely on-site position. When I joined as well, I would argue that Brawl is a very in-house team as well. Like it's a very much like the team is very much on location. We do allow remote work, so if there's anything that you need, like we're very flexible. We don't have any hard or set rules. If you want to work from home, all good. It's really up to the person. We trust is one of our core pillars, and we trust everybody to make their own decisions about that. However, for me as a producer, like I would argue, like I really want to be with my team. And for Brawl specific as well, there's so many discussions for us happening on the floor. There's so many emergent discussions happening over lunch at the the water cooler, so to say, that it's something that I would not miss or would miss if I would be remote. So for our culture specifically, I would say definitely in office. I also work remote and also hybrid at different companies, worked fine as well. But yeah, it really depends. I would always argue like, yeah, whatever the team is doing and the team is geared and set up to do. Because yeah, like in Brawl, I would say like, yeah, it's not a good thing now. I think if you would be fully remote.
Yeah, I sorry, just to add to that, I totally agree with that. I think it depends so much on the culture and the game and the people, and usually it is that the producer tries to adjust to the team's needs and is in the office together with them, because it's just, I agree, it's definitely different when you're there. Like you are there instead of being at home, right, or anywhere else. But having said that, to address the complexity in many games during the pandemic being developed, released. Sorry.
Yeah, you were just a bit rough. Sorry to interrupt you. There was the internet connection missing right now. I would go to someone else and you just
can you hear me?
check it. Yeah, we can hear you. It was just a bit, you're chopping out a bit. Maybe I will ask a
Can you hear me?
question later. Yes.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, well, it maybe the connection. We would just keep on.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now it's fine. It was just a check.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's. Just to very briefly finish what I was saying.
Yeah.
If we look at Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate 3 and other games, these were also developed during the pandemic, and with home office involved, and this is a proven thing that we are able to make games from anywhere in the world, even though it is harder. So it's a give and take.
Yeah, thank you. Robin, can you add something for you personally and for your company? Is this
Yeah, Remini now has an office in Sweden as well. And our colleagues there work on the same projects that we do. So some of the people, so sort of that it assumes an inherent, hybrid option at least. There's just people that I work with every day that work in our Sweden office. So all of our meetings are online, even if almost everyone will be at the office. Personally, especially when I have a lot of meetings, I just prefer to go to the office. I don't like having all those meetings at my kitchen table. But sometimes I think like Marilena said, it's actually nice to be at home, focus on the things you need to do, because it's a little easier to get there than at the office. And sometimes I'll talk to my leads if they really need some focus time and suggest the same. If you need a good focus day, maybe try not to have it at the office. Some of my colleagues they just work remote. So don't come to either of our offices and live abroad elsewhere. But that's very case by case.
Yeah, thank you. Now I have a question from the chat that they're asking, as a game producer, do you have creative influence on the other areas? For example, narrative design or game design? Maybe Maurice, you can tell us about this. Do you have a creative influence on
Yeah, I
what
love
you're
that
doing?
question. Yes, because especially in Brawl, we're incredibly passionate about Brawl Stars in general. Like our whole team plays it. They just want to make it the best game that we can. We strongly believe that best ideas can come from anywhere. So anybody in our team can have suggestions, ideas. We have channels for that as well on Slack, and we often implement those as well. There's a high degree of trust within Supercell. Like, hey, you want to do it? Let's do it. Let's try it. I have a good example, not for myself. Like I do have like a couple of like gameplay things. I really enjoy like collaborating with the team on that, especially when we play test. Love to give ideas and love to give my feedback. But maybe another cool example of one of her animators. She was very passionate about if you ever played games that have kind of like these highlight moments in the game with like cool camera movements, and she really wanted to have something like that in the game, really cool, highlighting some of the skins. And then we recently released that feature, and she was kind of leading that. She was like kind of like, I really love this, and we changed it slightly. This is after talking again, like collaboration on it. But now the feature's in the game, and if you one of the season passes that we released has this cool animation intro of the featured skin. So I think there's a really great example of the culture within our team, and that every day can be somewhere. But we always respect the person. Like for example, when it comes to gameplay, as an example, right? We have a gameplay lead. So while I do really have good discussions and challenge him on things, ultimately I also trust that he's making the final call and the final decision. So even though he might disagree with me, I'm like, okay, cool. That's it's your call.
Okay, and for you, Robin, do you have creative influence on what you on the other parts?
I think so. Maybe not entirely in the spirit of the question, but I think just by virtue of how we manage teams and sort of who you involve from other teams, like the influence on the end result will always be there. But in the specific sort of example of I have an idea, can we get it in the game? Or shall we do this? I actually think that's a very difficult topic to do as a producer, because if you're doing project management, I actually find it really helps to have a little bit of distance, rather than sort of get into the creative storm, because well, all my colleagues are really good at what they do, so they will probably get there without my input. And sometimes, like if I have an idea or I have a thought, sitting on it for maybe 30 seconds, it will come up from someone else. And then I'm not engaged in the same conversation. I will say what I'm thinking if I think sort of this will help get to an end result that as a project manager I think makes more sense. But I try and be very careful with this. But I do think if you just have good ideas or like a good solution to a problem, the team will welcome that. I have this with my colleagues. Sometimes, simple solutions are just great. For example, I don't do complex narrative design, but sometimes I could say, hey, actually, we have this other thing somewhere on the game. How about that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Marilena, are you with us? You are nodding to that.
I am with you.
Yes.
Question is for how long? I'm very sorry. Sometimes there's like a couple of seconds of lag. So if you don't, if I, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So we'll try. But I think it's very similar to what Robin said. Also for me, I think it's always nice to be able to make a suggestion, but don't forget that you may own the feature from a production side, but not from a creative side. That's usually the game designer, that's usually a level designer, it's usually a UX designer, depending on the feature. And but I think what is important is to definitely have or make a call together with the product owner on when to abandon ideas. And that's a very difficult call to make, and that also includes this eye for, hey, I don't see this feature going further than this stage. And I think that also includes the ability to think creatively and suggesting change or something else.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I think
would-
that's actually
yeah.
sort of a really good example. Keeping a little bit of that distance will actually help then have a conversation about the production realities that come with something. If you've been really involved in fleshing out an idea, you're no longer just driving this. You are involved creatively, and if you then start talking about, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, or actually, out of all these options, this one makes more sense, the sort of the creative opinion and a production opinion may start to get mixed. If not for you, then for the other people in your team. And that can make your job a lot harder.
You are the voice of reason.
Yes. And sort of sticking to that is a large part of it, even if that's why this may be a bit of a tangent, but that's, I think, if you look at sort of the evolution of our industry, people that went into production were probably originally designers or artists themselves, and they, as teams got bigger, they needed someone to manage it. So they were originally artists, and they just end up managing artists. But I think our industry evolved a little, where production is now a craft by itself. So if you want to get in production, I think it's really important that you ask yourself that question, like, am I excited for managing this creativity? Or would I actually rather be a designer, or would I rather be the artist? But I don't think you should go into production if you would actually want to be the artist. If you want to have that creative opinion, then make sure you end up on the creative side of the work.
Well, thank you. This
So,
is great
I'm
advice.
gonna chime in. I want to.
Oh, no, you
I'm
want to
gonna
say something
add one
different?
more
Oh,
thing.
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like one thing that and it might be different, right? So in my experience as well with the teams, but one thing that I do find really important that I learned throughout my career is like when I started, I was very process heavy focused. I was very focused on, learning about Agile, learning about Scrum, and learning about like Jira and task management and project management basics and everything like that. And I would really focus on shipping on time. Later on though, like my realization and what I feel is like if you have delivered everything perfectly on time, but nobody cares because it's a board game, then again, nobody cares about your process either. So for me, that was like kind of like it sounds very maybe logical if I say it out loud now, but like for me, that was kind of like, oh, okay, I should focus more on player value and like player focus development. And I would say that I do see a big part of my job. So besides making sure that we can deliver in a sustainable way and deliver that, I also want to make sure that we deliver the right things. And that's where my energy goes. Am I the one coming up with all the crazy ideas? Absolutely not. Will I have feedback? Yes. But definitely always having this in mind, like I would always go for, our product discussions and our product focus, our game focus, and player focus in any discussion, and that always for me trumps any process or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for these insights. We have a few more questions about this before we go into the how do you start in a career like that. We talked about this a bit about the tools. You mentioned that you use? What are the most important tools that you use for this kind of job you do? Maybe you can list a few or explain what you are using. Maybe Robin, you can tell us about some tools that are important in your line of work.
I think I spend most of my time every day in Jira, aside from Slack or Zoom. A lot of it for us is in Jira. That's where we track all our work. That's also where I try to keep our overview, and where we track things like the volume of work remaining, how we plan our milestones, how we plan our sprints. It all goes there. So that's really the big one. And personally, just any good notepad you have, any app that works for you, and I know that's different for everyone. Some people like physical notebooks. Some people actually use Notepad. But whatever works for you will keep you going.
Yeah, this sounds easy enough, and maybe not.
That's true. I think for me, especially for the last, I still haven't found a notepad I really love. I keep sort of figuring out how to do my daily to-do. And maybe that also changes with how much is happening in the project or the stage. And maybe for Jira, or any other project management software, if you have not used it before, it's a lot, it's weird. But even if you're doing student projects or even a project on your own, making even a Trello board or setting up your own local Jira version to track your work is a super valuable exercise.
Yeah, thank you. Maurice, do you have any different tools that one may know or need for your work?
I mean, what I use the most, like, is a Slack. Like, it is a primary communication tool. Like, we do everything in it. The secondary is like project management software. And I always like pick whatever the team is using. And I also make my own to-do list in that. So depending whatever the team and company I'm at, I'll use that. And then Google Suite, so or Microsoft, but anything that goes from Word, slides, Excel sheets.
Yeah, okay. Marilena, you nod. It's like all of these and more.
So mandated by the company is Microsoft Teams. So I'm using that on a day-to-day basis, as well as Jira. A lot of stuff is happening on Jira. We track also all our work there, but my personal favorite is Excel, not to track work there, of course, but it's to basically do the capacity planning, to calculate end dates, to check, I really love tinkering with numbers to kind of see if I can create different scenarios for different, production timelines. And that really helps me setting up stuff for either the roadmap or de-risking features or further stuff. And another thing I like to use to visualize, especially for devs, I've noticed with creative people a lot that they really don't like Excel. And I really love using Miro to visualize as much as possible from what I have in the Excel, to put it in the Miro to kind of show this wonderland of things instead of just boring numbers. Yeah.
+1 for Miro, any digital whiteboards.
Yeah.
Figma is also great.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Miro is super great. And also just a +1 Excel. It sounds boring using the spreadsheet, but if you put together, there's nothing that gets a room of producers excited as someone that made a really cool Excel spreadsheet.
I love Excel. My heart will always be with Excel.
Sometimes
I don't care what everyone says.
Yeah, sometimes my colleagues will have made something really cool in Excel, and it sort of it outputs everything, and like they have super quick scenario planning, and it just gets everyone excited.
It's Sorry,
ahead.
it's like you're the cool guy in the bar doing a flick flack. This is what it is to other colleagues and producers
Yes.
if you like create a drop down list in Excel.
Yeah. But actually Excel is super useful. Like Marilena said, if you take your data from Jira, it actually makes it super easy to just copy paste. Actually, what if we just take this and then make 6 of them? What does that do? Or what if we change the number slightly? What if we get another person on the team? How does that change the numbers? For those kind of things, I have a lot of Excel spreadsheets lying around just to solve specific questions. What would happen if we do this? And I just take whatever data I have in Jira, throw it in a spreadsheet, and start playing with the numbers.
Can we throw an Excel party at some
Yes.
point, like a
Would love
digital
that.
Excel party? I'd love that. Thank you.
What do I wear to that? Many layers and yeah.
Obviously black, Anna. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
look at us.
The elephant in the room is like, okay.
But just to add to that, I think the mindset that you have to get into is because I really hate maths, and Excel is opening doors for me in terms of, it does the work that I cannot do, and this is the mindset that you have to get into in order to start loving Excel. Yeah.
So now we have to shorten the ad for this. No, thanks you so much for giving us insights in this kind of in your work in this kind of way. I have a chat question. This will be the last one on this kind of section. Then we will move on to career starting, your experiences, and how I can start out when I want to be a game producer. So the question was, if you are using agile game development like scrums and sprints, you already told us about this, and could you explain the way it works, maybe in a short way? I know it's a broader topic, but maybe one of you can explain how this works. Maybe Robin, you mentioned sprints as well. Can you explain how this works?
Sure. I'll take an example from how we did this on Alan Wake 2. Not what we're doing right now, but when we made Alan Wake 2, we basically split our timeline into milestones, which are 2 months, and then we would have 2 3-week sprints where we do content, and then a 2-week sprint at the end to sort of try and wrap up the content. This sort of assumes you have a backlog where all the work you still need to do to finish this project is we would kick off a milestone, having conversation with all the teams. What do they actually want to do? And start finding tickets in our backlog that, hey, if they want to do that, we need to do this. And flagging to other teams, if we want to do this, I need you to do this. And that sort of starts dragging tickets into sprints. We figure out who does it. And then based on that info, we fill it out with the rest of what we think is actually the most important. And sometimes we will come to the conclusion that we have too much work on a single person. So we go back to one of those other teams and say, hey, you asked for this, but actually we cannot get it right now. We'll move it to the next sprint, and that's okay. Or actually we need to move it out. But on a team that was that big, it was actually a lot of work to make sure all the teams were aligned, because pipelines were quite long, and the dependencies were quite real. Like people would just, I mean, they wouldn't be sitting around waiting, but they couldn't proceed on certain things that they wanted to work on until they had been cleared by other teams. And so that's effectively how we plan our sprints. And then as we go, try and adjust. If things don't seem to be getting done in time, what does that mean? Where does the work go? What does that mean for a long term? Do things move out? Do we need to change some design to make it fit? Stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very helpful to understand kind of how it works. Maurice, is it similar, or is it like a different? No, it's completely different. Okay.
Completely different in this team. But this is, I would say, yeah, we don't use Scrum. I have been using Scrum before. I can talk about it if anybody is interested. But for this team, no, we don't use Scrum. We do use, I would say, we do embody the agile development practices. like, the Agile Manifesto, like individuals' interactions over process and tools is very big for us. Like we constantly communicate, solve problems together. Same for working software over documentation. Maybe we leaned a little bit too heavy on that. Very little documentation, but definitely the big benefit. Like we definitely value things in game, test it, iterate over it together. And yeah, same for responding to change. We pivot quite quickly in our updates, and yeah, thrown features away or had epiphanies of like, oh, this sounds amazing for our players. Let's do that instead, and then we just conjure up some magic and have some amazing stuff that wasn't there before a few days ago. So yeah, I would say like we're definitely more agile as a team. We are more fluid in our planning. We do things like checkouts. We do retrospectives. So we borrow a couple of like practices, I would say, but we don't follow sprints in that sense.
Oh, okay, thank you. So there are different approaches on these kind of things. I'm looking at the time, Marilena. We still have time, but if you do, you want to add something to?
Just maybe a general advice. Don't try to always get stuck on doing Scrum by the book. Try to tailor solutions fit for your team. Don't get stuck on doing things exactly by the book. Grab the things that work for your team, trial and error them, see if they work. If they don't work, adapt something else. And this is all about being agile at the end of the day. And if Scrum doesn't work out for you, it means it's not agile enough for you.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe to add one small thing to it. So like for me, like especially in a development game, so not necessarily for Lifehouse, but game development, I do love Scrum, especially for pre-production type of questions, because it forces you to work in smaller iterations and forces you to check and inspect. Like the core principle is like it's a process that inspects and adapts and all. That's like the core principle behind Scrum, in my opinion, or what I've learned. Because like from the dailies to the sprint planning to the sprint review to the retros, everything is looking at how are we looking right now. Should we change anything, both in the game as well as in our team, and everything is built around that. I think that is a core principle I love, but it can take many different forms. And then I think especially in development, that is just key. How you do it, there's many different ways. But yeah, constantly inspecting and adapting, I would do that all the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we know everything about your work. No, we don't. But now we want to know how to get into this field of work, and I will pass over to Helen, who will ask you some more questions about the career aspect of the work.
Yeah, thank you so much, especially about all that excellent insight. Just so you know, we always post a little wrap up the day after for everyone who couldn't attend. And yeah, the excellent enthusiasm will definitely be mentioned. Great to know. Yeah, now that we've learned so much about your job, we want to know how you got there. And I would like to first ask you, what did your career path even look like? How did you enter the industry, and how did you become a producer yourself? Robin, maybe you could answer first.
Sure. Well, I studied business administration, which is a very sort of corporate focused angle. But I did know that I was very interested in, of course, video games. And I figured there's got to be some kind of business management side to making video games. These teams are pretty big. There's got to be someone in there that does this. And that's why I sort of was interested in becoming a producer. When I finished studying, because I didn't get to do an internship while studying, I was at an industry event, and there were some people talking with a producer from a local company. And someone in that group said they were doing an internship, production internship. I heard them say it was running on in 2 months. I looked up where he worked and applied there because they were apparently looking for someone. I was lucky enough to get hired for the position, and then they kept me on. So I got pretty lucky on that angle, especially as I didn't have an education that led me to games. But I stuck around, and I worked at a Dutch indie studio for 9.5 years. Did games for a lot of consoles at the time. In a game called Awesome Knots, which we worked on for about 8 or 9 years. That was a lot of live service, and then in 2020 I moved to Remedy, where I've worked on sort of a more linear single player experience.
Awesome. You say you got lucky, but I say that's a way into the industry that seems to be pretty common. So a great example. Thank you for sharing. Marilena, how did you get into the games industry?
So I started studying a course that is called game design, but it's like really about a lot of various areas of game production. And I first took the art path until I realized I am not good at it. And but I discovered throughout my studies that organizing things is what I really like to do. Coming back to the Excel thing. But basically there I kind of, throughout my studies, I realized production is really something I would like to do. So I finished and during my studies, important to mention that I always tried to go to various conferences, various events. I applied as a volunteer. I hustled a lot, distributed a lot of my business cards, tried to get business cards back, adding people on LinkedIn, like being incredibly busy, trying to get known and get to know and be known by the industry. And so my first job I got at King Art Games, and I remember a couple months beforehand, before I applied for my internship in production, I spoke to one of the CEOs at a conference, and he actually recognized me again at my interview. So, you know, there is some value to it when you do these things, and just expanding your network. And that's how I got into the industry.
Awesome, thank you. So your Excel sheets aren't just useful, they're also pretty.
Yeah, correct.
Perfect. Okay, Maurice, you've already unmuted yourself. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I started, I did art school. And 3 years in, a lot of students probably wonder, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? At least that's what I asked myself. Was not creating art. That I knew as well. I was also not the best artist. Also not something I enjoyed and wanted to make a career out of. And I was playing a lot of games. That's probably a lot of people that are listening now do. And I figured, like, hey, can I make that into a career? So I guess like 16 years ago, that was maybe slightly smaller industry than now. And I literally look up the credits list of like what kind of people make games, and I found something called a producer. I'm like, what is that? And just looked into more of what producers do, and figured like, hey, that's actually very fitting to my profile. So, as we all have like this tendency to organize things. So like I was like a guild leader, and I was like always organizing the parties and other stuff, and volunteering at some organizational positions, and figured, hey, that's something that maybe I could get into. And that set my course, and I set a goal for myself, I think it was at the time I said something like, be a producer before I'm 30. I gave myself quite some time. And because when I finished art school, I did finish it. My parents really wanted me to finish that. I figured out, okay, I applied to junior producer roles, didn't get it, didn't have any game experience. I did have, I think my last year I did a game project, but no formal training. And I joined through a mutual friend, or through a friend, I joined a social media company in the Netherlands, where I'm from. Kind of like a QA department. They call it different at the time, but it was like kind of like a QA position, and that taught me a lot more about managing backlogs and core project management skills. Also working with different teams, working with tech people, working with the community team. But from the get-go, I already said to my manager, maybe not the best career move, by the way, but like, hey, I want to work in games, so I'm not going to be here forever. Then 2 years in, I went to a career fair in an industry, and in the meantime, I kept learning about how games were made and about the craft. And 2 years in, like I actually ran into InnoGames, which is located in Hamburg, they offered me a job. They had two positions. One was a producer, which I said like I want that, but also a product management position. And they said, but we want you for this. And I'm like, okay, well, first job in the industry, I'll take it. It sounds really exciting as well. Can learn a lot. I was doing a lot of like as well, like what Marilena said, like there's a lot of value in like volunteering and other like keeping that organizational, learning about all kinds of organizational skills. And for me, it was esports. Was part of like a Dutch organization, and one of them was working with our Korean partners. And I think that's something that they were interested in as well, because my first job was managing a Asian developed MMO, was developed in Taiwan, bring that back to the European market and my job was as a product manager was more the publishing side. So hiring community team, doing translations, QA, all kinds of stuff. So I got a lot more insight about what it takes to publish a game. It was also quite scary as my first job, being sole responsible and accountable for shipping that game. Unfortunately, we didn't. That was also like I had to stand up to the board and say like why we should kill this game. Ultimately, I could switch internally at InnoGames and became a producer there, working on Elvenar. And that is kind of like how I got started as a producer and fulfilled my quest of becoming a producer before I was 30. And then my next job was become a good producer. That's been a lifelong journey so far.
I was just gonna ask, like, how far away is that goal in age-wise?
You can always go. You can always go do better. So
awesome. Yeah, thank you. I feel like we hit the holy trinity of how to get into games, like volunteering, networking, an internship, or doing something with QA. And between the three of you, we've got it all. Perfect. We had another question from the chat, which I would like, I feel like that would fit right now. They asked if the three of you had to start from zero, which way would you take to become a game producer? Would you do it all again or would you do it differently? Marilena.
I would not study. Honestly, I have my studies opened doors to certain events and conferences for me, but like really the knowledge I have now I learned at the job, really. Maybe because I picked the wrong thing to study in the first place, but I would have looked into more, trying to gather more practical experience, or maybe pick something that is more on the business organization, project management kind of things. So yeah, that was my mistake that I made.
I feel mistake is a harsh word for that, but good to know, definitely. Rowan, as someone who did study something with business, would you do it all over again like that?
I guess so. I think my education was quite helpful. It actually, I think business administration, at least the way I was taught it, is very much about learning about different sides of a business and then learning how to manage them together. Which in game development, it's a lot of crafts and they need to talk to each other and you're sort of interfacing between them. I think that still very resonates a lot. But my entry into the industry, I joined a very small company. Well, it was 15 people when I joined, and we grew to about 30. But I was the sole producer there for most of the time, and sort of my experience over the last couple of years at Remedy has really taught me the value of being part of a bigger team and learning from other people there. It's been a really good experience being part of a bigger team. I got to experience a lot of really cool things at an indie company, from production to business development, marketing, community management, QA, everything. Like I was doing everything, but I enjoy just doing production a lot more. So I would have maybe tried to get into a bigger company right away. And if that hadn't worked out, trying to get management experience elsewhere, at maybe a non-gaming company, and then try to make that switch later. If I now see people apply, I'm not too involved in recruitment, but if I see people apply, I don't really mind if they're not from the industry. I think sort of that is something we can work with if they have experience managing or organizing. I actually had notes saying if you're a guild leader of a successful guild, that is actually a massive bonus. Because any experience organizing will really help.
Interesting career tips. Thank you for that. Maurice, you kind of went the way that Robin was just describing. So would you say, yeah, that's definitely how you would do it again?
I would probably pick a different study, but I discovered that later. But then again, like the advice I would give to anyone, like, yeah, just pick anything that sounds familiar or sorry, not familiar, but sounds interesting. You will, you're still like learning a ton of what you like and you don't like. You'll keep learning that. A lot of people don't end up in a job that they studied for, and that's okay. I do think you learn a lot of valuable lessons from just interacting with different students, doing project work, just working together with people, finishing stuff, which is a really good skill to have. So I think like doesn't really matter. I think you just learn a lot by going to college or university, anything like that, like as just a core skill, how to learn things. Like that kind of stuff is still valuable. So I would absolutely personally would recommend to do a education, whatever that is interesting to you. And I would probably pick also something with the knowledge that I have now, more akin to maybe games. Like there's a lot more game studies out there now, or business side of things.
There was actually just a question from the chat that fits perfectly. Someone asked, what do you think, like, what about game production as a field of study? I don't know, do any of you have experience with any study courses like that? Do you like, are they good?
I had interns that use some. Again, highly depends on, I think, both the study and the person, more probably the person than the study course material. Like if somebody is super driven and motivated by themselves, that will speak a lot more than the curriculum. But I think it's valid. Like I don't think it's a must, but it is something that I think those schools generally also have networks with like other companies. They might get you into certain intern positions there. I know that I think in InnoGames, we definitely work with a couple of schools, and even in a smaller indie company that I worked, Sticky Studios, we had some good contacts with different schools where we attended like career fair, job fairs and stuff like that. So I do think like, yeah, it can help in terms of like education. You can like nowadays you can learn a ton online. You can do a lot like by making games, volunteering, like a lot of these like extra experience outside of school. So yeah, I would say it's a valid option, not the only path.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if education is not the end all be all, but it's nice to have, what would you say, what are necessary hard and soft skills that a career starter in production should already possess? Marilena, do you have anything that comes to mind?
So in terms of hard skills, again, I'm sorry this is becoming a thing, but I think you should try and evolve your skills in Excel because it is a very valuable tool. It is the way it is. I totally vouch for that program. But other than that, how to work agile, just imagine you have a toolkit, you have a box with tools in it, and you want to have Excel in it, you want to have Jira in it. You may want to look into maybe even Handsoft. I don't know if they have like trial kind of period things for you to test out. What else? I think yeah, these are like the basics. Learning how to do agile, basically put all of that knowledge into that toolkit, and then see what you can fit into when you work with your teams. And in terms of soft skills, I think it's difficult because soft skills is something that you develop throughout your entire career. It's not something that you can, go and have it ready. It's something you learn on the job every day. So the thing that I really can recommend is maybe a little bit of lecture. A book that I really love is Crucial Accountability. This is basically how to have difficult conversations with people. There's actually a trilogy: Crucial Conversations, Crucial Accountability, and Crucial Influence. To me, this is my holy trinity of soft skills when it comes to working with people, as to how to have conversations, how to hold people accountable, and how to be influential, how to lead with influence instead with authority. And these are my three go-to to read and develop your skills throughout time.
Awesome, thank you. Just to make sure for anyone in the chat, that is the book by Schützer, right?
Let me see, because I have it right here.
Oh, perfect.
It is. Can I hold it in the camera? Yeah, no, you cannot see it.
Not really, but I saw the cover, and
Yeah.
it's the first
It's
thing
the blue
that comes
cover.
up when you Google Crucial Accountability people. So
Yeah,
you'll
correct.
find it. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Robin, what do you think? Are there any other hard or soft skills a career starter should already bring to the table?
I think I very much agree with Marilena. The soft skills, if I look back on my career, doing the work, talking to my team every day has sort of really evolved my own soft skills a lot. I think your soft skills need to be at a level where you can sort of, well, obviously empathize with people and have a conversation, ask questions about what they need or what they do without being incredibly annoying. But if you clear that bar, I think you're ready to get into this. For hard skills, yes, I agree. Excel. If you can't imagine yourself being excited for a cool Excel spreadsheet, this is probably not for you. If you don't exactly know how to do that, that is something we can work with. But and then any kind of management experience. I think if I would look at a CV, I think any experience that shows that you have organized things or that you have worked with the team. If you've coached some kind of sports team, or if you've taught sports classes to your local football group or something, if you've been a shift manager at McDonald's, that is all super, super valuable. Like I said, if you've been a guild leader somewhere, I think those are really good examples of you naturally looking to organize or to lead a group of people to deliver on something.
All right, thank you. Maurice, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I care less about tools. I'm gonna say it. For me, it's it's something that can be taught pretty easily. I do think, I guess both said it as well. You need to have an interest. Like, of course, like you do need to, not be scared of that. But what I'm more looking like, yeah, like project management work experience. So any fundamentals of like, how do I break down something complex into bite-sized chunks? How do we deliver? One thing I want to add as well, something that I always value in producers, is knowing how games are made. Like you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to be an artist or a game designer, but I do think it's incredibly valuable if you know how those disciplines operate. Again, if you like AAA studios, they will have a lot more more expertise in different areas. So you could say like more art or more design or so on. I think in general, just like it's just really, really good if you know how they work. So either by practicing yourself, but it could also be by just reading up like postmortems or other of the many, many, many interviews. But hopefully, and of course, like doing projects together with other creative people. The other thing I would say, like, be humble and curious. Like, it's something like you have to constantly learn. You have to like ask questions. Like, I love if producers like constantly ask and are curious how things are made. Like, even talking with the engineers, talking with the designers, like, how did you do this thing? How are you working? Show me how you're doing this thing. Like, it just teaches you a lot about like how they work, and also like the struggles that they have, because I think that's where you can add value. Like, oh, this thing that I've been hammering their heads against, they just accept the fact that that's how they work and it needs 40 clicks. Maybe there's an engineer that can solve it and connect them together and make them solve that problem together. So yeah, always like be curious, be humble. And the other thing, like I think it's really valuable to, if you have been in a surface role, I think we are surface leaders, servant leaders. At least that's a term that gets thrown a lot sometimes. I like it. I think like I'm there to help and support the team. I'm not there to make like super harsh calls. At least it's in my position. I'm at even stronger. I think at some jobs I had more of an authority role in the team about shipping and certain features. Right now, I'm in even more of a servant leader position where I'm more akin to maybe, let's say, an agile coach, where I just really like find ways for the team to accelerate, but not necessarily make any calls. Like we're a pretty flat hierarchy, a lot of trust-based. Like I said before, very trust-based. So like the team makes a lot of the calls. I don't make those. And that's really been like a great challenge and something that I think is a great skill to develop as well. Like just be that servant leader.
Thank you. You just took my next question basically away and already answered it, which would have been, okay, do you need to understand or have basic knowledge of dedicated softwares and stuff to understand what other people are doing at the company, actually? And you're all nodding, so because the time is progressing, we are just going to skip that. And instead, probably a question that most people in the chat are wondering, like, if you are interested in becoming a producer, what would be the place to start these days? What would you recommend people to look? Marilena already mentioned a book. You've shown different ways into the industry in general. Told us about your own ways. What would be your number one tip currently? What should people who want to get started definitely do?
In my opinion, it's always important when you apply, you want to have a CV ready. I think that's the basics. I can definitely recommend in terms of how to structure the CV. If you do not have much, or if you believe to not have much experience related to games, there are ways to make your CV look good, look professional, and also look like you do have relevant experience. And I don't mean by that you should like write anything in there, but like try to find as many things to add to your experience that you already did before. And what I did for my CV, because that's really something I am proud of, is I followed the ABC method from Jean Leggett. This is a person that did a presentation before on how to create a very good portfolio and a CV with not much experience and still be appealing and professional. And that helped me a lot setting up everything basically in order to apply. But on the other hand, also, it's basically coming back to also what Robin and Maurice said. It's any experience that you made somewhere else, put it to use. If you can't find anything immediately, try and see if you can step into IT or something else, and then make your way through games. It doesn't have to be games to be, your immediate first stop. You can try, but it's, you can go through other ways too.
Right, thank you. I think, Robin, you already kind of covered this with your previous answers. So, Maurice, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I agree with like experience. Like, so first and foremost, like there's a lot of transferable skills, what Marilena said as well. So like anything, like I did the same when I started out. Like I said, I volunteer, for example, for an esport organization. I could translate that a lot of like how I manage that relation, how I set up like an event, how I helped like organizing certain things. Like there's a lot of transferable skills that you can probably take from either jobs or volunteering experience or even in school, that you can say like, hey, this is why I think I'll be a match for this junior producer role or equivalent. So yeah, definitely get experience in those adjacent areas. The other thing nowadays, what I always advise, there's a great game production community on Discord. There's discord.gg/game production. They're a great community with both veterans and newbies. I haven't been active too much lately, but I was there early on as well, and I was really active on it. It's a great tribe of people. So yeah, definitely check those out. They also have a great Google Sheet they maintain where the community put in a lot of resources, like a lot of resources in terms of books and podcasts and videos. They group all pretty neatly because there's a bunch of producers, so it's all very organized. And yeah, that's super helpful. So if you want to learn, that's a great source to check out.
Yeah, shout out to that Discord. We actually posted this panel there as well. So maybe someone's here in the chat who's already a member of that Discord. Who knows?
I will just have one quick note. Just a second, something Marilena said. I think it's really important that you have a CV ready to go. I think I think production, like entry-level production positions or even internships are quite rare. And that makes competition for them quite intense. Having a CV ready to go when you hear it come up somewhere or when you see it get posted will just really, really help. It can be really scary I know it can be really scary to apply because I've been there. But the more time you spend sort of maybe tweaking your CV or not feeling comfortable sending it out will just cost you some of these opportunities, and there's just not that many of them. So just have one ready. Applying, it doesn't have to be perfect, but applying will just go so much further than waiting.
All right, thank you. Staying right on that topic of tips for your application, I'm going to pass it back to Anna.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we are learning so much today. It's amazing. As usual, you talked about CV and what you have to be ready. But how do I apply when I want to work in production? Do I have a portfolio? We know this in artists and other fields. So if there is a portfolio or something I can show, what is it? What can I show when I apply for game production? Maybe Maurice, you can tell us more about that.
Sure. So in my experience, resumes are not very common in the sense we're not very visual, or like we can't share a piece of code or anything like that. And showing a Trello board that is done is also not very exciting. But what I do think is like, yeah, a lot of good stories and like a lot of like, again, like what did you learn? Like, what did you do? What was the outcome? What did you learn? What did not go well? What did go well? What would you have done different? Like those kind of stories, and translating them back into for the job description. So like I love cover letters. It's very like a debated topic, and also depends very heavily on culture, like where you apply. Like some countries don't care at all. They just skip that. Some countries are way more accustomed to it. So do your research if you're applying abroad. But personally, I do love cover letters, especially for people switching industries or people starting out, because it gives you a chance to explain why you think are a great fit, even though your resume might be pretty light. And I definitely have given people the chance to, to get, because that's what it is, right? Your resume and everything is to get that first interview. After that, it's you and, the interview. But yeah, so like the better you can sell why you're a great fit for that role, what it takes is good. But yeah, for me, that normally goes with resume and cover letter.
Thank you. And for you, Robin, is there like a portfolio, or do you say this is the way?
No, I agree with Maurice. I think the CV is very important, and the CV will also show just the way sort of it's formatted or what you have on there will actually show quite a bit. Of course, if it's very organized, and I mean, our job is about communication most of the time. If it's neatly organized or a complete mess will actually sort of impact how I see this. I think that goes for all jobs, but because production is, we don't have a portfolio where I can say, actually, your CV is a mess, but damn, that portfolio is great. And I also really like a cover letter, especially if you, like Maurice said, if you're switching careers or if you have a really good point to make. But be aware that people might not actually see it when there is a recruiter involved internally, for example, they might read the cover letter and sort of then that gets filtered out and then the CV gets passed on before our next interviewer. So make sure your CV does stand by itself. If you have shipped games, like even if it's a student project that you launched on Steam, just the fact that you have released something will prove that you've gone through an entire production cycle. I would always ask someone about this, just to talk about, or like if we get to an interview, I would always ask to tell something about the project. What did you learn? What went well? What didn't? So if you have shipped anything that I can take a look at, or just sort of read up on, please include it, because it's such a relevant experience.
Yeah, and there was a question in the chat very quickly, like, is hobby game project in the CV something you would say yes, no, because as a it can be difficult for people to understand what can I put in it, what can I put inside, what can I show, what I can do. Is there like a hobby project something you would recommend, or maybe like maybe more the professional stuff?
No, I think I mean in general I like it when people put their hobbies in their CV. And if you have a hobby project, especially if it's shipped or if there's something publicly available for it, that's just great. If it's just you working on something couple hours a week and you've never shared anything about it, still listed as you're doing some some game design or art for yourself. But if anything is public, please list it. Because even if it's on your own, you're going through the cycle of figuring out what's important. What does this thing look like when it's done? How are we shipping this? All of that is still happening if it's just you.
I do have a small caveat. I think like you are applying, I'm assuming you are applying to a producer position. If it oozes more game design, programmer, I'm less interested. Like I would just question like, oh, do you want to be game designer instead? Like, why are you applying? So like, make sure again, like context is everything. So like, especially if you made that game with multiple people, that's great. You can highlight again like your role into it. If it's a solo passion project, it can hold value, but make sure that you're still like hitting the beats of what we want to see in terms of like production and your interest in production and people, and not like have don't make me read like paragraphs about programming things you solved or design things. At least for me that doesn't work.
No,
Other people may have different opinions, but
no, I think that's perfectly right. Yeah, as long as it sort of fits in there as you're interested in the process of making games, sure. But if you would rather be a game designer, then please, look for a game design position.
Thank you so much for
Uh,
this answer.
just
Yeah.
just to add to that, because I saw the question by our lovely colleague, I think maybe the person also wanted to know just how do you incorporate it into your CV? So I guess maybe put an itch.io link or something like that, or how would you usually see it in a CV?
I think so, yeah. There may be some rules about following links from CVs at companies. Like sometimes from what I've heard from other companies, you can really only focus on what is on the page. But as long as it's fairly descriptive of what you've done, I guess so. But then if it's a commercial thing, then it's professional experience. If it was your hobby, maybe listed as such.
Maybe really quick to add on, like, see one thing we like, I have been a hiring manager before, and we see many resumes, and then don't make me work for it. Like that's the one thing that I want to give to anybody. Like if you want me to follow a link, put in a password, scroll
Yes.
down three pages, find out, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to click it away and I'm just going to look at the next one. Like it sounds very much like, oh, Maurice, you, oh, I'm not going to curse, but like, it's like, you know, like we're busy people, like we're doing our jobs and we're hiring. If I have somebody who perfectly lines up 1 page, 2 page resume that I can immediately see this is a great fit, cool, great, let's get an interview with this person. If you make me like go click links and do all these steps in order to figure out if you're a fit, that's not great. So like, yeah, please keep it short. And then many, especially for a producer position, I don't know if people will like go and check out again your game and play it, and like there's probably very little time for that. But again, translate how those skills apply to this job you're applying for in just a really short, brief way. I think that's enough. And if you want to include your link to a download page or like a game page, that's perfectly fine, but that's an added bonus. That should not be your main communication form.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. Looking at the time, we are exactly at 7:30. So unfortunately, if we couldn't answer your question, we hope that it was not too terrible for you. I think there were just 1 or 2 we had to miss, unfortunately, now, because there's so much knowledge going around. We could never share everything with you. But yeah, thank you so much, Maurice, Robin, and Marilena, for joining. We learned certainly quite a lot today, not only about the power of Excel, but also just in general about the job of producers. And there are definitely way less question marks in my head regarding that position now. Also, thank you everyone who joined us today. Thank you for your many, many questions. It was a great discussion, I think. And yeah, we hope to see you again soon online or at any of our networking events here in Hamburg. Thanks and have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.